Welcome to HCM TradeSeal. Let's talk about a very quick start, learn the basics of HCM TradeSeal, and what we'll do today is we'll set up one employee, have them work on one or maybe two jobs, and see if we can create a certified payroll report. For starters, let's add an employee. We'll head over to Data Manager, choose Employees, and add one. The required fields have a red asterisk so you know to add them, and we'll create an employee with ID 1111. In terms of required fields, I'll give them a name. I like the name Pat Perfect to illustrate a simple, perfect example employee. And it looks like that's all I have to add for now. So I'm going to save them that way. I could give them a union. It's a good idea to give them a base rate of pay. So I'll give them $22.22 and hit add. There we go. Don't forget to hit save after you add data to the TradeSeal Data Manager. This gives me one employee. So now I need to give this employee some hours. What I'll do is head over to the cost entry screen. I'll choose a work week. In my example, I've got a week that ends on March 15th. I happen to be recording this demo on March 14th. So to be more realistic, I'll have this be week ending March 8th, payroll for last week. And I'm going to give Pat 8 hours on Monday, 8 hours on Tuesday, 8 hours on Wednesday, 8 hours on Thursday, 8 hours on Friday, and I'm going to give him some overtime as well on Monday and Tuesday. 2 hours Monday, 2 hours Tuesday, and we're going to have him work on a job too. I'm going to just make up a job number. I'll call it project 1, 2, 3. And it's useful on construction jobs to be sure and explain what type of work the employee was doing. In TradeSeal, this is called position. So we'll call him a laborer on project 1, 2, 3. Of course, if I didn't want to type this in, I could upload hours, but I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, so I'm just entering in the data. Last but not least, if I wanted to, I could add a cost center, define a shift. I could pay bonus using direct pay, give them a special override rate if the job requires that, but we don't have to cover that just yet. And I'll leave a note and save. So let's take a look. If I go to the rate validation screen, what I'll see is 44 hours for Pat. If I hover over this, I'll get a better idea of the breakout. I can even split out the dates that Pat worked and try to understand regular versus overtime on each day with pay codes. And I can even see different rates. It looks like he got the same rate for starters. In TradeSeal, when you see a base rate of 22 for an overtime, don't worry about that. It's showing you the base rate, which will be calculated and paid at the rate of, in this case, 33.33. So the base rate is very important. It's showing you how the calculation is derived. The rate is what is calculated. So I'm going to zoom out here. We'll go back to less detail. All we know at this point is that Pat worked 44 hours. So if I wanted to create a certified payroll report, I certainly could, but something is missing for certified payroll purposes. I don't know what this job is, Project 1, 2, 3, and I also don't know the prevailing wage rates. Those are important to consider. So in my example, Pat is a laborer, and let's say that I read a prevailing wage determination and find out the laborers are supposed to get $25 an hour. That will be significant because Pat is only earning 22 at the moment. So there's a few ways I can do this in TradeSeal. There is a really nice AI assisted workflow to have TradeSeal automatically read the wage determination for you. But this is a tutorial, so I'm going to show what it would be like to set up the data on my own. So I'll go to rates and I'm going to add my first rate. And for a prevailing wage rate, I'm not going to be interested in union number or employee ID, but I am going to be interested in the job number. Since the job is P123, that'll be important. And in my example, I am particularly concerned with the laborer rate. I like to call it laborer for simplicity. Perhaps when I put it on a certified payroll report, I want the label to say specifically what the agency or the GC is asking. So I could say like laborer example variant because some laborers have different descriptors of the type of labor that they're doing. So I'll just stick with that for now. And I need to define a rate of pay too. In my prevailing wage determination, for example, it might say $25.01, and I'll add a few notes. Add. Okay, my work is done for the rate of pay. Let's see how that updates the pay. Pretty good. So keeping this very simple, Pat still has his 44 hours, but now the system understands that because he worked on job 123 as a laborer, he has to get no less than 25 for a prevailing wage. And if I take a closer look at his dates, pay codes, rates of pay, I can now see the calculated rate changing. It's $25.01, and for overtime, that'd be 37.52. Pretty good, although for prevailing wage, we are missing one thing. What about the fringe benefits? So let's go add that as well. Similar to the rates of pay, our fringe benefits are going to need a job number, so I'll be sure to add that. But unlike rates, benefits also need a name and a code because the system needs to understand what is this benefit called. So I'm going to call it PW fringe benefit. If I was going to integrate this with my payroll system, I may also want to call it PW fringe, or if I really want to be short, I can say PWF. Maybe that would be my payroll code. I'm not going to add a union number. This has nothing to do with unions at the moment. I don't need vendor number. That's more of a job costing thing. What I'm going to add though is the same job number, project 123, the same position, labor, and I have to do a few benefit settings that are important. The type of benefit, if I'm doing a prevailing wage, fringe is an earning because if nothing else, I must pay this as what's called cash in lieu or an earning to the worker. I'm going to use a special calculation method called PW fringe, which is specifically for prevailing wage fringes that you'll see in wage determinations. And then I'll give them an amount. How about in this case, we'll say $9.99 fringe benefit. I'm not going to touch fringe credit. The prevailing wage fringe itself is not a fringe credit. That's different. Perhaps we'll cover that in a different video. And I'll add a note. Now, this is important because when I look at most wage determinations and most certified payroll reporting requirements, I do need to understand the amount of fringe benefits I'm required to pay to the employee. I need to also understand the rate of pay that I'm required to pay to the employee. So let's see what changed when I take a look at the hours for Pat. The system is now going to show me that it found a matching prevailing wage rule, $25.01, and a matching fringe benefit rule. Um, and it looks like the total benefits that I pay as an employer are zero for this employee, but it is going to catch the cash fringe or cash in lieu. Indeed, I have to pay him $9.99 an hour to meet the prevailing wage requirements. So he's really getting a total of $35 an hour in this example. Okay, we've entered him in. We've even taken the time to enforce prevailing wage rules to make sure we're not underpaying Pat. I can use this. This can be integrated with my payroll system. If you have HCM TradeSeal, you can get this integrated with any payroll system. Or in this demo, I'm going to just, since it's one employee, I'm going to pretend that I'm going into my payroll system and just keying it in. But once I've done that, I can make sure that I've paid Pat at these rates. I've paid him at a basic rate of $25.01 an hour, and I have to also give him $9.99 an hour in cash fringe, and my payroll system will total that. So once this is done, you'll get something from your payroll system called a payroll journal. A payroll journal is just a machine readable output of the check stubs, usually a Excel or a CSV file. And in my example, I'm going to use a paychecks format payroll journal. This can be either uploaded with a file or you can use an API connection in HCM TradeSeal. In this case, I'm going to choose this payroll journal file I have for my tutorial check date. Let's see. I believe I was doing this week. So, boy, I'm entering payroll today. I'm just going to pretend the check date's the 18th. That's a little weird, but I'm going to keep going. And the last day of the work week, I gave them the 8th. So the last day of the work week would have been March 8th. And now I'm all set. So I'm going to generate a certified payroll report. So I'm going to choose from my list. In this tutorial, I've only got two possible reports, the federal certified payroll and the union report. I would like to do the new version of the federal certified payroll report. So I'm going to pick my work week ending March 8th. I'm also going to choose the payroll journal file that I uploaded. I'm going to skip these settings and choose the new version. So the federal certified payroll report revision January 2025. I'm going to choose that one and hit generate. So below, TradeSeal is reading the check stub data from my payroll system. It's also reading the hours that I keyed in for this employee, and the result is I get a complete certified payroll report in the new format. So let's give this a download and take a look at the result. I got a zip file, and in my zip file, I got a federal certified payroll report, and I also got an addendum for fringe benefits. So we'll take a look at both. The federal certified payroll report looks like this. It's going to have a detailed breakout. I'll zoom in a little bit. It's going to have a detailed breakout of the employee's name, their worker ID or SSN. I did not enter one for this employee, so I just got zeros. It's going to designate whether they're a journeyman or apprentice. It's going to give them a labor classification. In this case, I typed laborer and I entered a variant. The text is a bit large here, but this is the certified payroll label that I entered earlier. And finally, it's going to do a detailed breakout of the hours. So it's got their regular and the overtime hours I gave them. That totals to 44. Breaks out the rates. Shows any fringe credits. That would be employer paid benefits. In this case, we have 0. They're not getting any fringe credits. It totals the cash in lieu for me and then adds other amounts like total gross and the amounts from the pay stub, such as net pay. These are just example numbers. And then I also, if I was paying fringe benefits, I would have to describe those using an addendum. It looks like that's not filled in because there are no fringe benefits. But nicely, HCM TradeSeal autofills my company information. If I want to, I can go add more job information in TradeSeal as well. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But these are the basics of creating a report, which took me just a few minutes. So now I'm going to close this report. Let's take a look at the addendum for benefits as well. As you can see, the fringe benefits are empty because I don't have any employer paid fringe benefits yet for this employee. Deductions, it looks like there were some payroll deductions, but those are already in the report. So there's really no fringe benefits to talk about. There's an addendum if I want it, but there's nothing in it at this point. So let's go back and add a little bit of job information to complete this full demonstration. My first report was pretty good, but I didn't want to have to manually type in the job info in the report. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to choose jobs, and I'm going to add a job. So the job number needs to match everything else in my example. I called it P123 for job number, not to be confused with a government project number. And that can vary depending on what agency or job you're working on, but I'm going to call it government 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to give it a name, example, CP project, address, Michigan. And something in TradeSeal that you'll get used to is you can choose whether jobs have reporting enabled or not. To designate this as a certified payroll job, I say reporting is CP. And there's a few other settings I can control, but for now, I'll just leave a note. And we'll hit save. So notice now when I go and regenerate the job, I do the same thing. I select federal certified payroll. I select the work week. I select the payroll file from the payroll system. And of course, I like the newer certified payroll report. Hit generate, and in just a few seconds it'll be done and we'll take a look. Okay, let's see if this has my updated job information. Hey, there it is. So it's got my project name and address. It's also got my project government ID. Wage determination number is something I'm going to have to go enter in on my own if I have a wage determination number for this. Certified payroll number as well. I'm going to have to keep an index of that, but it's filled in most of my job information. Still no fringe benefits. We'll cover that in a different video. So if I sign this digitally or print it out and sign it, I'll be done and I can submit this and I have the confidence knowing that the numbers are accurate. And it only took me a few minutes to create it. Where this really gets exciting is if you have multiple employees, multiple jobs, the automation will save you hours and hours. So that's a simple tutorial. We went from having absolutely no data in the system to creating an employee, creating certified payroll rates, benefits, some job data as well to enhance the certified report. We took a look at the calculations, and we also created Federal Certified Payroll Report 2025 version. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next video.